Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. The Minnesota Twins are looking forward to another great season in 2023, led by the return of All-Stars Carlos Correa and Brian Buxton. With the return of numerous players who were injured in 2022 and some new acquisitions, another division crown and a return to the World Series are in their sights. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. I'm your sometimes host, Alan Miller, not as much as I used to be, and we are here with a return guest this afternoon. And I might say about this guest that we wouldn't be sitting in this place, in this studio, if it was not for this man, Rick King, who used to be managing director. He has since retired from Thomson Reuters. And we go back a long way. It's so exciting to have you back, and really to have you back in the building.
It's good to be back, and it's great to see you, Alan, and it's good to be back in the building. I literally haven't been back here since I retired.
I was amazed when you said that as you walked in, and that's what, 2 years ago?
It was 2/1/21, and being a math person, I like that set of numbers.
And well, the story of this studio and Thomson Reuters and the public-private partnership, why don't you tell us how that happened before we get into what you've been doing? And you've been doing a lot of things since you retired, a lot of things.
Try to stay busy. Yeah, I think what we found is that when Eagan TV and Burnsville TV were going to split, that there was no home for Eagan TV at that time. And, you know, we had this marvelous facility here. We had 6,000 employees at the time. It was still not totally filled, and we had this downstairs lower level that was all set for this type of media. It had studios already. So the premise was, why can't we, with Eagan, the city of Eagan, put together a partnership where Eagan can use the studio for some of the things that they need to do, and that Thomson Reuters could use the studio for things that they wanted.
That must be something that somebody with great foresight suggested.
There are people involved with this. Some of them are named Alan Miller. Alan's like the little parrot on your shoulder. Just at the right time, he whispers in your ear, why don't you think about this? And I go, that's a good idea. Whoop, that's a good idea.
And we spoke to Hodges, the city manager.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, just growed.
It grew and it stayed, and I can't really quite remember. It's been at least 10 years, hasn't it?
12.
12, okay. Yeah, so it's been here a long time. That's really a great run. And as Thomson Reuters moves to its new facility down the street a bit, I guess that ETV will find a new home, which will probably end up being good for them too.
Yeah, I was hoping actually that maybe ETV could move with Thomson Reuters. I don't think that's in the books. I think that we're going to stay probably in one of the city facilities, the way it looks now. But it's been a really good private-public partnership. this last dozen years?
I can tell you, I was so glad when I heard that Thomson Reuters was going to stay in Eagan, because the people in Eagan, the city of Eagan, the politicians, the professional staff have always been among the best in the business, and it was easy to have a partnership with them because they looked at, you know, a good partnership. You get good things for both partners, and that's the way they looked at it. From the day we moved into this building till the day we moved out, it'll be that way. And fortunately, Thomson Reuters can enjoy that in the new facility down the road.
Now, you were originally a Vermonter, but you are certainly now a Minnesotan, tried and true, and you've gone on in several areas, but in particular, at the moment, you are the chair of the Metropolitan Airports Commission. And our airport was just recently selected as #1 in the country after a $1.6 billion upgrade under your tutelage. So talk about that a little bit.
First, I really can't take a lot of credit for it. Maybe the credit is to keep the professional staff, a good staff hired, good staff doing things from the top down. Brian Ricks and all the team do a great job running the airport. The board does a good job on policy, and we have a great board that really helps the staff run the airport, and it's just the way it ought to be. And that's why you win, because you have great employees that are actually interfacing. But
yeah, a couple of our people are on the board, as a matter of fact.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. I think the most important thing in an airport, we're in a smaller airport footprint-wise. We're landlocked. We don't have this expansion room that you see in a place like Denver, where they moved way out of the city to get a lot of room. So you have to optimize every little inch of your facility. And then you can't build brand new. You have to run an airport while you upgrade an airport. So that whole $1.6 billion expansion, operational improvements happen while we're still running the airport, and that's always a challenge. Now in 2019, it looked like it was going to be one level of challenge, where you have almost 40 million passengers a year, and those kind of records that you're breaking through. Then COVID hits, you have a different type of challenge. How do you keep all of this going with nobody flying? And now we're almost fully recovered here in 2023, back to the levels of 2019.
And going forward, it's going to be only more air travel and more air travel. When we moved to Minnesota 26, 27 years ago, the second terminal, which was the Humphrey terminal, because we had the Lindbergh, and we now have 1 and 2. I liked Lindbergh and well, I didn't like Lindbergh so much, but I certainly liked Humphrey, and had 3 gates. Today, how many does it have?
Today it has 11 or 12, I can't even think, but what I'm thinking about, of course, is on one end we're going to add 2 more, and on another end we're going to add 3 or more, because there's increasing need for the carriers at T2 to fly. And gates are expensive, but when we see the long-term requirements for the airlines being that we need to have more gates, that's something we're interested in doing. The other phenomenon that's interesting, if you go back to probably 2004, 5, 6, something like that, we actually had more operations then than we do today. But we have more passengers today than we did then. The mix of aircraft has changed considerably. Even right before COVID, the number of regional carrier jets was slightly above 50% of the departures and arrivals at the airport. Today it's probably 20%. So you've got mainline jets that carry more people. So you fly more people with fewer operations, and then the airlines are upgauging those planes, so they're taking the smaller jets and putting in larger jets. So at the same time, you get more people per plane. So that's where you get these metrics of the passengers going up, where the operations don't go up at the same level. And that's good. The planes make noise, so less noise is better, less operations is better, more passengers is better for everybody involved because people just want to travel.
And the planes are actually less noisy than they were 20 years ago.
By an unbelievable amount.
Yeah. That certainly is big. To walk into the terminal, the main terminal today, it's like walking into a mall. I mean, you have so many restaurants and so many stores and so many provisions that you can purchase there. It's really got to be challenging.
Well, that's a big business at the airport, and you know, when you say arrive 2 hours before your flight to get through security, sometimes people get through really fast. They've got a lot of time to spend. They want to grab a bite to eat. Some people have a family. They want to get a quick serve, some food, something to drink really fast. Other people sit down, want a little more calm, kind of restaurant experience. And then the number of people that are buying shirts, ties, shoes, newspapers, prints items from the print store, those kinds of things, or enjoying live music performances at some of the venues is just incredible. It isn't the way it used to be 20, 25 years ago.
But what is?
It's just like an amazing mall. Basically, it's a mall, and it takes care of people once they get through the security.
You know, early on here, Sun Country, I've always been for the little guy. It just runs with me. Sun Country was a favorite of ours. It had 7 or 8 planes. The Dailies were the owners at the time, and we sort of grew up with Bob and the late Barb. And Sun Country today is the #1 small airline in the country, and they probably have 25 planes or more, and it's such a different world.
Yeah, they're actually they're over 50 planes.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they are by far the #2 carrier at the airport. Great growth desires. They're part of the reason that we are looking for more gates at T2. Great business model. That low-cost carrier group, I think Sun Country has found their niche in there where they provide a lot of good services, but they keep their costs under control, and then they go to warm weather destinations when you want to get warm, and cool weather destinations when you want to get cool.
And we do. We already have our Puerto Vallarta reservation for next year.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, you've also been on all sorts of boards, and you're still on, I have a list here, Huntington Bank Shares, Q5 ID, whatever that is, you can tell us about it, American Public Media, Minnesota Business Partnership, I don't know what else.
Well, some of those...
On the 7th day you rest, I don't know.
Absolutely. I need to say, I rolled off the NPR board last year, so I'm no longer on that one. And the business partnership one went out the door when I retired. But the other ones, yes, I'm on a Huntington Bank board. People will know Huntington, it's the name on the Gopher Stadium now. Bought TCF, I was on that board before. Let's just say regional banking has been a very interesting, on an interesting journey. Huntington's a great bank. I've enjoyed being on that board. I enjoy it a lot. We have a really good operation, but there's been a lot of stress after those bank failures. There's been a lot of stress from the government recovering from maybe not inspecting them enough to now inspecting a lot more.
Get them into Eagan. I don't think they're in Eagan.
I'm sure that I think there is a bank in Eagan. I'll get that address for you. But yeah, there are quite a few around the Twin Cities. Minneapolis is one of the areas where they've got some strength from the TCF days.
Like everything else, we used to enjoy the smallness of a bank, but banks keep getting bought out and become bigger banks, and then those banks become even bigger banks, and you lose some of the family aspect of it that you used to have.
You're really right. The problem with this, there isn't a problem with the smaller banks. The government regulations cause banks to have to spend a lot on technology, a lot on compliance, and for smaller banks, it's a huge difficult thing to comply with. So you see those smaller banks coming together up to a certain level so they can, they can take advantage of that spending across a bigger revenue source, and that sometimes drives the smaller ones out. Credit unions, you're starting to see,
seeing it with the credit unions
they're starting
today,
to come together too. So I don't think that's the government's desire necessarily, but I think overwhelming that desire is that they want to inspect all these things. They want you to comply more rigorously to higher and higher standards, and that takes time and money from a risk and a technology point of view.
Well, it's all going forward, and if we have a democracy left after this next election, I expect it to continue going forward in a big way. Now, you were chair of the Ultra High-Speed Broadband Task Force. You started out working for a Republican governor. You ended up working for 2 Democratic governors. You obviously have a personality that acclimates itself to being able to work with a lot of people. You showed it here in Eagan and Thomson Reuters. You show it on your boards. How was that?
Well, you're right. With Governor Pawlenty, I think he had a great deal of interest in high-speed broadband, and probably even before it's been popular. There wasn't federal money being sprinkled around like there is today. I'm glad for that, but he still wanted a map for the state to figure out where we were and where we needed to be. And he always knew that eventually times will get better financially. Now, from my perspective, that kind of view isn't an R or a D. It's a view for the state and bringing the state forward. So I view things around the issues, and the issues that I've had, in terms of like working for Governor Dayton over some of the airport stuff or technology, with Governor Walz with technology and the airport stuff as well. Whether we agree on all the policy items isn't really the matter. It's, can I help them run an effective organization? Can I help contribute to the technology that helps the state do its job better? Can I help run the airport so the state has a strong economic engine there? I can do that, and it really doesn't matter what party they're from. And I just try to stay out of the actual, I understand the politics, but I try to stay out of the politics.
Obviously, it works because you have crossed party lines on both sides and worked with both sides very successfully. Now, you started out as a math teacher, is that correct?
That's right,
in Vermont.
That's right.
You're still a big skier, I understand.
Well, I ski very little now, but yeah, I'm sort of more spending time with the grandkids, family, or vacationing with my wife.
Now, you always were very big on technology and analytics. Suddenly, we have artificial intelligence creeping into our lives. Maybe creeping is not a good word, maybe taking over our lives, I don't know. How does that fit in? What does that portend for the future?
Wow, we should have a whole day show on that, but I would just say...
We could do that.
For AI, there are so many good things that we'll get out of AI, and there are so many pitfalls with AI. It's like any technology that comes in. There's always a black side or a dark side to the use of it or the exploitation of it for nefarious means or by nefarious people. The good part's going to be, I think it will help us do a lot of the mundane things in better ways, where it takes a huge amount of time, for example, to digest data that could help us solve something like a very difficult medical situation. We'll be able to use artificial intelligence and quantum computing together to get a cycle of R&D done a lot faster, and I think that's the benefit for people.
The question in a lot of our minds is, will this put a lot of people out of work?
I think, like any technology, what happens is the lower tasks get raised up, so the technology starts doing a lot of the lower end tasks. So I just encourage people to pursue moving yourself up that food chain, move yourself up, understand how things are done. Don't just go in to, do piecework one from the other. Learn how to do some of that stuff, learn how to do the automation of those things, learn how to be a little bit more in control of that. Everybody is responsible, along with their employers, of moving themselves up that food chain a little bit. And I think people are capable of it, but I always think at that base level, technologies, including AI, are going to nip along and take over some of that because they're just more well suited to it. So we each individually have to chart a course and stay ahead of it.
But, does that mean a lot of people are going to be out of work because of AI, or is there going to be an area where they can, still find jobs, make a living? The economy is doing very well at the moment. Unemployment is way down at the moment. Hundreds of thousands of jobs are going unfilled. So
I think there's still going to be plenty of jobs, Alan. I think if you say certain jobs, will a person be pushed out of a certain job? That's very possible. Are there other jobs that they should be taking? Yes, they're there. I mean, I think in the Twin Cities there's a huge number of jobs that a person could take if the job they're in could be at risk because of any kind of technology. I think right now, particularly with the population scenarios that are going on, there's no question in my mind that there's jobs going to be open.
Let's hope so. And
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, you've got the baby boomers pushing through retirement and beyond, leaves a big hole. The other groups don't have enough workers. I mean, there's social institutions that we need to worry about too in terms of that population. That's one of the
healthcare in particular, as the population is aging, we need more competent workers in that, and that's one of my concerns. What about electric cars? Where do you see that going?
I think that will continue and will, as soon as people see that they can get charged fast across the country, it'll be like a very fast adoption. Once people realize there's really no maintenance. The problem today is that people don't think they can go where they want to go and come back.
Well, it's charging stations.
That's exactly it.
In fact, I said to Sharon just last night, if I was getting another car now, I would probably get a hybrid so that I could have the electric and still have the benefit of the gas when I needed it. And there aren't enough charging stations.
There aren't. But you're going to see them. We're putting them in the airport, in the rental car lots. We're putting them in the public parking areas. We got the thing that's interesting is, for electric cars, we need more electricity from the electricity providers.
And that's fossil fuels.
That's right now. That's fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Unless you can do more nuclear, you're still doing fossil fuels. You can't get enough wind, or you can't get enough solar to meet that demand. So it's an interesting conundrum. And
one that I think probably technology will solve, because it has solved so many. We certainly are suffering from global warming at the moment, or climate change, or whatever you want to call it, notwithstanding people who don't recognize it. But if they don't recognize it after this summer, after this past year, then they will never recognize it.
I think that's probably a fair point, Alan. I mean, it's indisputable. But today, as you well know, people dispute all kinds of what I and you would consider facts.
So, artificial intelligence, do you think a computer is going to sit here and take the place of a television host?
Well, I think in some ways it could. Some ways it could, but I'm not sure the human dynamic would be missing. You know, the fact that I don't know how to let that know that you and I have worked together for a long time, you and I know each other for a long time. It can know the facts of when we've talked better than you and I can know it.
But it can't have the feeling.
Doesn't have that feeling
Right.
of the warmness. So I'm not sure it replaces totally. But if you're talking about figuring out how to ask questions based on researching X, Y, and Z, they can do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now, I want to mention before we really, and we're down to a minute and a half, you were CIO of the Year in 2020. You got a Lifetime Achievement Awards from the Minnesota Technical Association. What's in the future for Rick King?
Well, today I've got the boards that I'm on that you've articulated here. We love being in Minnesota. We're going to be in Minnesota. We're going to serve on those boards. I'm open to helping the state however I can in terms of any kind of special projects, but not looking for a full-time job, just looking to relax.
How about running for political office?
Absolutely not.
Okay, we're sure about that.
No question. Yeah. I have said I'd consider certain appointed things, but I think the time is leaving for that. I think special projects and the boards are the things where I can serve the best today.
Rick King, always a favorite. And it's such a pleasure to have you back, even to be able to draw you back into this building. I want to thank you so much. And let's do this again down the road a bit.
Absolutely. Alan, thanks for the invitation to come back.
Thank you.
Always great to see you.